Hello and welcome to the Full Moon Effect. My name is Patrick.
And I'm Kaz.
And this is the first episode of a new podcast completely dedicated to full moon features and the work of Charles Band. We're really excited to get this started, and we hope you guys enjoy this. If you don't know what full moon features is, full moon is this great movie studio, essentially, that's been around for a long time. They really flourished back in the 90s in the direct-to-video VHS era with movies like Puppet Master, the film we'll be talking about tonight, Subspecies, the Trancers sequels. And they're still around today as Full Moon features. They do super micro-budget productions like Evil Bong and the Gary Busey Killer Puppet series, Ginger Dead Man, thank you. So they're still out there today doing their thing. It's this great series of cult films that I've always really enjoyed, and I just thought it would be great to do a podcast dedicated to Full Moon. So the premise of the Full Moon Effect is we want to do a film-by-film analysis of Charles Band's career, essentially, the complete Full Moon filmography. Now, what I'm using to base this series on is the official Full Moon numbers. If anyone has ever bought a Full Moon DVD or Blu-ray recently, you'll notice that the spines have little numbers on them, kind of like the Criterion Collection numbers their films. And these numbers include all of the Empire Pictures, which was Charles Band's production company before he did Full Moon. So they've kind of retroactively claimed all of those as Full Moon movies. But all of the Charles Band films have an official number, and that is the kind of chronology we're going to be following. We're sticking with the official kind of Full Moon numbered system. We're not starting at the beginning. We are going to start with Puppet Master, which is actually Full Moon number 63, but it was the first film released as a Full Moon movie.
Right, it's probably one of the ones that people would know the most.
Absolutely. It's the iconic Full Moon film. It was the first one that was officially released as a Full Moon movie. It really kicked off this whole thing. So that's going to be our first movie that we're starting out with. We're going to proceed forward chronologically from there, except my thought is that if and when they release new films, hardcore fans will know there are a few in production right now. We will jump forward and talk about those.
While it's still fresh and hot.
Yes, yeah, when it's the hot new thing that all the kids are talking about.
in the courtyard.
Yes, exactly. So we will jump forward and talk about, say, Evil Bong High Five, which is coming out this April, when that is released before returning to our numbered chronology. Does that make any sense at all what I'm saying, Kaz? Does the words that are coming out of my mouth make sense? Does that make sense to people? Okay, good. So that is kind of the idea behind the Full Moon Effect. We're going to try to get these episodes up on a sort of regular basis. So we hope you guys enjoy tonight's discussion and will enjoy future episodes. So, as I said, our first film tonight, which we just got done watching and are going to talk to you about, was 1989's Puppet Master, Full Moon number 63. Kaz, do you want to kind of summarize the premise of this great cinematic masterpiece we just enjoyed?
Sure. I mean, essentially the storyline for the movie is that there's this odd old fellow in the beginning of the movie who seems to have the ability to create puppets that are actually living, breathing beings. Mm-hmm. And he is basically forced into a corner by some shady characters that show up, and he ends up killing himself.
Yes.
And then throughout the movie, you begin to unravel this mystery that, like, someone who is believed to be dead, who knew a bunch of magicians of sorts, who were invited to, like this hotel where the whole, earlier scenario, which took place in the past, happened.
Yes.
And
the Bodega Bay Inn.
Right.
Yeah.
And, the puppets are now under the either reigning free or under the control of someone else, and, chaos ensues from there, and mysteries are revealed.
Yes, and a lot of people die horrible deaths, and there's a lot of pretty great puppet kill sequences in this.
Oh, yes.
It is an unusually kind of twisty strange story.
Right.
Even given the fact that it has killer puppets, right? Like this is obviously a weird movie, but even on top of that, like the main characters are psychics. You know what I mean? Which gives it this whole kind of like otherworldly dimension.
All with varying degrees of ability.
Yeah.
Like, you had like the one woman who could tell the history of a certain part, like a bed or a room or something like that. And then there was the one guy who saw like the future through his dreams.
Yep.
The other lady who seemed she was more like just your typical kind of like voodoo sightseer.
Yeah, they
kind
call
of like
her the White Witch a couple times.
Witch,
she was kind of like this hoodoo kind of character, who, funnily enough, made her living giving fake psychic readings to clueless couples, but she in fact had great powers. You came to find out, which I thought was kind of a funny take on the character.
Oh yes,
yeah. So what did you kind of think? You had seen this before.
Yeah, a few times when I was younger.
Yes. Yeah, so what was kind of your take on Puppet Master? Did you mostly enjoy it? Or?
I think what really works in the movie's favor, obviously, the effects work, and just the unique design of the puppets. Yes. But the whole opening scene really draws you into the movie.
Okay.
For me personally, it really draws you in the movie. Mm-hmm. And it's really well executed. It's just vague enough where you're wondering, like, what is this whole ordeal that's going on? Who are these people that showed up? What is this old guy? He's got these puppets. And you almost, like you were pointing out during the movie, like, it almost makes you feel sorry for the puppets because it's almost like their father is being murdered in a sense.
Yeah, so you like that whole opening sequence that takes place in the past with Andre Toulon killing himself. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was a really intriguing opening.
Right, and in the way that the ground level shots from the perspective of the puppets like play out in that whole scene, the weird breathing. And then like, that first reveal shot of like the moving puppet blade when the lady catches up him and screams, and he just the good stop motion animation. Kind of like that. It's just everything that needs to happen to make you intrigued by the film. I think happens within that opening scene.
Yeah, it's really
you're invested enough in like the idea of what's going on with this plot. The puppet effects are great.
Yes,
you want to know more about them, and from there it just you kind of get engaged in that.
It's really good filmmaking, and that's the thing about Full Moon, especially during this era. And this was kind of like the idea behind Full Moon. And I think it was Full Moon Entertainment at this point. It's gone through various incarnations, and we'll discuss all that as we go forward in the filmography here. But that was kind of the idea behind these movies. I think Puppet Master at one point they had intended to release theatrically before Charles Band determined that it's going to be much more profitable as a direct-to-video release. And of course it was a huge hit. But I think they still wanted this movie and all the subsequent kind of direct-to-video Full Moon movies to look like movies. I think that's one thing that really impressed both of us watching this is just the kind of the measured pace of the movie, the look of the film, the way these scenes, like you described, were constructed so well to kind of
like it was definitely a B movie. You could tell it was a B movie.
This is not Lawrence of Arabia,
but the presentation of it was very well done for like a lower budget kind of.
Exactly.
It's like the people who made the movie understood filmmaking, and they tried to apply, proper properties of filmmaking into like the development of it, and with the cinematography and like you said, the pacing of the scenes were really well done. Like like nowadays where you're jumping from shot to shot and like in this movie, it understood like build up, which is very lost in a lot of modern day horror films.
Absolutely, a lot of films in general.
One shot comes to mind to me early in the film with the reveal of Pinhead, the big bulking strong arm one. The slow zooming in shot towards the caskets, and something's going to be revealed, but it's dragging you along with it, and when he shows up, it's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. There, you're right, and I was surprised by that too. Just kind of the movie really takes its time to like build these scenes and build tension. It's not like all right out there
and show how each character is before they're ultimately killed off.
It gives, and each of the human characters have their own personality, obviously, but each of the puppets too kind of have their own kind of personality.
Yes, the personalities of the puppets are very well conveyed considering like how little there is to their just overall you know,
they're puppets.
They're puppets, yeah. Like, they can't express much.
They don't speak.
I mean, with Blade, you know, you can kind of get, like, a sense of what he's feeling with the way his eyes, like, move about. Mm-hmm. Like, he has, like, those little
blades
that pop out.
Yeah, when he's surprised.
Like, later in the movie when Jester is, like, thrown, it's almost like he's, like, shocked or taken aback.
Yes.
With his eyes, like, he goes, wide-eyed or something.
And I think, like, I mean, in a way it sounds obvious, but I think the puppets are the real key to the success of this movie.
Very much so.
I mean, when I first saw it, it was 1989. I probably didn't see it right when it came out. I mean, I was probably, like, 11 or 12 when I first saw this movie. But I bet that's the experience for a lot of people, because in a weird way, like, this is... Like, you shouldn't show horror movies to children, but if you were going to, like, this is kind of like a good horror movie for children. Or it's at least one that would appeal to young people.
In the sense that, like, it's not overly grotesque to the point, except near the end.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. It definitely would be inappropriate. I mean, no responsible parent would want their child to watch this movie. But, like,
I mean, like, with the scenes between the two lovey-dovey.
Oh, yes, there's some freaky sex going on here. Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think, and I kind of feel like the producers of the film had to kind of know that these little characters on the box, on the VHS box, are going to appeal to, like, at least young teenagers.
Like,
you know?
I know what you mean, though. Like, you know, for kids whose parents, you know, knew they could handle horror movies, or, like, say they were getting into horror movies, and they wanted to kind of wean them into them.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, a kid would probably, like, feel more invested in something with all the kind of like cool looking characters and stuff like that. I just
feel like there's something very appealing for, like, young horror fans, with these, like, puppet characters,
who latch more onto, like, things with, like, a unique style and flair to it.
And I think the fact that they were also, like, uniquely designed, and they had their own personalities, and you could learn the names and abilities of all the puppets, like, that appealed to me in the same way that, like, Marvel Comics and all those characters appealed to you. You know, there's something that they really tapped into, I think, with this film, that goes beyond the quality of any of the individual movies.
I mean, they all had very, like, simplistic names, too, that were just kind of almost, like, playful in a way. Like, you know, just, like, Blade or Tunnel or Pinhead.
Right. Yeah, well, let's do the breakdown. It's Blade, who is probably my favorite. Mm-hmm. So he has his... where his hands would be. One is a switchblade and the other is a hook. Yeah. And then Pinhead, who we mentioned.
Right. He's
pretty great.
I love the effects where they used actual hands for his... When they framed the shots so you couldn't see behind the puppet necessarily, they used actual hands for, like, a lot of the close-ups, so it just looked more like a threatening sense. It worked. Of, like, just like some, like, you know, haphazard moving, like, puppet.
Yeah, no, it looked really good. Like, a lot of the effects in this movie looked really good. So yeah, Pinhead was pretty great. Tunneler, who we mentioned, and he kind of is what he sounds like. He's this little kind of, like, creepy looking guy with a drill on his head, basically, who's obviously responsible for the goriest kills in the movie.
I feel like he was probably the creepiest one too, because he's just got that aesthetic where, you know, he's got the deadly weapon that just seems to really, like, you know, you cringe if that was happening to you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, his face just has that kind of, like, offness to it that it's kind of unsettling,
odd.
You know?
It's an odd design.
Him and the leech lady have, like, the most unsettling, I think, faces expression-wise, while the other ones are just a bit more, like, almost like I mean, Blade's kind of a weird, kind of, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's not necessarily, like, scary as it is just kind of, like, interesting looking.
Yes, or cool.
Pinhead is got that kind of, like, you know, Jersey, like, wrestler kind of look to him.
Yeah, he's your basic kind of brawler, right? Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. Their looks bring out these personalities. So yeah, like Leech Woman that you mentioned, she's the oddest of the puppets, I think. So she has, I mean, they're all, like, very straightforward, and I just don't know how they came up with Leech Woman. You know what I mean? Like, you can kind of see, like, okay, one has a knife, one's really strong, one has the drill, and then Leech Woman is the only female puppet, and she has the ability to somehow regurgitate these huge, disgusting-looking leeches.
Out of the dimensional pit in her stomach that just unleashes them.
So she regurgitates leeches onto her victims, which I guess would slowly, kill them. It's pretty creepy, but it's the least time-effective method of murder of all the puppets,
Right.
It's very strange.
Although if you were witnessing it happening to yourself, I think it would be most gruesome in the sense of it's a slow death and you're witnessing it happening.
And there's a lot of pretty great shots of Leech Woman just opening her maw and these leeches just kind of come out. I think one of your favorite shots in the movie was that
towards the end, where the giant leech, the very huge one, just and her face is just head turned back, the neck's elongating, and its mouth is just widening.
That was a great impression of a leech woman regurgitating a leech, Kaz. That was really well done. And then I think the only other one is Jester, right?
Jester, who was kind of the moral center, as I like to think of. He rubbed me as that one, he's in a band of thieves, but he's kind of got this whole innocent quality.
Jester does not actually kill anyone in this movie. He doesn't even participate in the final kill, which is all of the puppets come together to finish off the bad guy, essentially.
He seems kind of like this witnesser of things, obviously, and he just seems like he's the one that almost expresses the feelings of the group at any given time.
Yeah.
He was, of course, the most expressive puppet, too, because his faces would just rotate to whatever emotion he wanted to express.
His face is split in three horizontally, and the head spins, and when it stops spinning, you see a different expression on his face every time. So he kind of almost is there as almost like a Greek chorus character in a way.
That's a good description.
To just kind of comments on the action and the emotions, and to represent where the puppets, as a group are kind of at mentally.
Right, and you feel if when he's attacked near the end, you see how all the puppets react. They seem to react very heavily to that. When Pinhead was thrown earlier, Blade wasn't so
and Pinhead's he's a brawler. He's punching women in the face. He's breaking people's ankles. You expect him to get tossed around. So when little Jester gets thrown against the wall, you feel kind of bad for him.
Right, and the puppets kind of convey that too when they react to that. So he definitely feels like the kind of heart of the group kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that is another kind of key to the series and a lot of these series. It's you care about the human characters enough to kind of sustain tension throughout the runtime of the movie, but you really are there for the puppets. You really like them. You're not really horrified by them. You might be by some of the violence and gore, but you kind of want them to come out on top, And they basically do in this first movie, and that becomes something of a pattern for all of the many, many sequels.
It almost felt like the puppets, all they really truly wanted was just a master to care for them almost.
Yeah.
Although it's not made abundantly clear. If we're just thinking in the context of this movie by itself, you'd think why is this guy is making a bunch of weird puppets.
Yeah.
And obviously some group or whatever is after him for some reason. The old dude originally in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
But the puppets feel they're more just concerned with, their master keeping them safe or being cared for by him.
Right.
They're more just, they're strictly devoted to a master.
Yes.
And they feel betrayed when the other guy who's now their master turns on them and thinks so lowly of them.
Yeah.
And they stop trying to help with his plan and just turn on him. It seems they're driven purely by whatever their master wishes.
Yeah. I think that's the idea, and that's clearly what the puppet master in this movie thinks, is that he has complete control over these puppets. But there clearly is a line that they won't cross.
Right.
And there clearly is, to some degree, free will that these puppets have. So, they can be controlled by the puppet master, but, when he turns against Jester, really, was when it happened, they basically, all bets are off, and they turn against the ostensible puppet master. So, and exactly how that works and exactly how much free will they have is, I think, sort of left deliberately vague, and it's sort of played with in other sequels, but it's interesting, the idea that you kind of want things to come out right for the puppets, even if, throughout most of the runtime of the movie, they're doing horrible things for their master, like somehow, like they do really terrible things to people, but you kind of want them to be okay. Like I didn't want the puppets.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm glad they all made it out alive in this entry, or alive-ish.
Most of the characters, I guess if we're gonna go to other characters outside of the puppets, most of the characters were one note for the most part.
Oh yeah.
Although
and it's a pretty big cast.
Although I feel like some characters were given a bit more breadth to them, just through like more subtler means, which I kind of enjoyed. At least for me personally, I was telling you about how the one lady, the names are escaping me because I don't think they mention each other's names all too often.
Not often, and it's a big cast too. But I think maybe Dana is the one you're thinking of.
Dana,
the kind of white witch with the dog.
Dana, yeah. I like how they kind of like painted her as this character who she's very seedy. She's kind of a bitch.
Yes. Kind of. Absolutely. Yes.
Maybe it's because I have just
a horrible person.
Maybe for me, it's like I have just this like affinity for just like bitchy characters sometimes that I latch onto them.
Oh, she's definitely fun, but
anyways, she seemed like she was a spiteful person merely out of the fact that she was lonely, and I kind of got that idea with the whole thing with the dog.
Yes. So she carries around
the stuffed dog, and she just talks to it constantly and just pours all her affection onto it.
Right.
In almost like a desperate attempt to feel like she's not like alone in her.
Right.
Like,
and the dog is stuffed in the sense of like taxidermy, right? Like it had once been a real dog, and
it paints her as this kind of like almost like you feel sorry for her because she's such a jerk, and she only brings it upon herself, and you kind of wonder like why is she like that?
Right.
Why does she decide to be like that?
Yeah.
I mean, you feel like there's a bit more subtlety to the character brought through just moments like that. They're just they don't take up a whole lot of the movie. They just they're tacked on. They're just giving you an further idea of her character.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that's just good filmmaking in terms of like the writing. Like you've got a large cast, you've got a lot going on. You have a fairly convoluted story, and you have a 90-minute runtime. So you clearly don't have the time to like do a true in-depth backstory on all of these characters.
Right.
But through those subtle little character quirks and traits, you can kind of suggest a larger backstory to the audience.
Or the type of person they are.
Yeah, exactly.
At least enough to make them feel like
they
people
have a life beyond the edge of the screen.
And not like a stereotype that's just thrown in there to get killed.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? You're totally right. I mean, I was impressed by how insightful you were in terms of like kind of imagining this larger inner life for this character, but I think it does speak to what a good job this movie does with that. These are not annoying teenagers that were just, we can't wait for them to die. You know what I mean? Like, we like the puppets, but we like the people too.
Right, and even if you don't like the people, you at least feel like they're a real person who is just dragged into this nonsense,
Yeah, very well said, despite all the bizarre kind of like supernatural goings on, for sure.
Right.
All right, well, one thing I definitely want to do in these episodes is kind of give a little kind of cast and crew breakdown, because one thing that I think is great about Charles Band and Full Moon is like he's worked with so many actors and directors and special effects people that it's kind of just fun to see like who worked on these movies.
Well, one of the actors in here, especially, like, I recognized him from a ton of like movies. He's a character actor for sure.
Yes, yeah,
the villain in this movie.
In here. Yeah, so Neil Gallagher was the bad guy. He was played by a guy called Jimmy F. Skaggs. Very well played, I thought.
Oh yeah,
yeah, probably easily the best performance in the movie.
He probably, yes, for sure. He probably comes to mind from like the Underworld movies he was in.
Yep.
But yeah, in this movie, he owns every scene he's in, and he brings the proper amount of like dedication to the role, like where he's playing the character to the point the way it should be.
Oh,
it's hammy, but like it's well acted.
But like kind of like perfectly over the top cartoon supervillain. But man, he just chewed up that scenery. Like he was really great in this.
And the way you can tell a good B actor from a bad B actor in my mind is a lot of times how do they handle their self body, like, body wise, and just like through their facial tics to make it seem like it's real emotion coming forth from them. He does it perfectly.
Yes.
Like, there's the one shot where he's you get the subtle like ticks in his face that he's like hurt by a comment, where he just like his smile just kind of fades for a bit, and he's like,
right.
And then he just kind of goes back to being his like evil self, and like the eye flutters and things like that. He was doing it really well.
It's not subtle acting, but it's very fun to watch, and he's clearly an actor who is aware of every single thing that his body and face is doing at every single
and it's
time.
a joy to watch.
It's a blast.
It's always fun to watch actors that are completely in tune with their body acting and their like verbal acting. And
yeah, so I think he had the best role in the movie. We had a lot of fun just watching him in this film. So Kaz mentioned, the Underworld movies. He's definitely one of those it's that guy type actors. Like, he doesn't have a lot of leading
the face
roles.
just like sticks with you. You just remember him from another movie.
He's been pretty prolific. He was in movies like Catch Me If You Can and Lethal Weapon. He sadly passed away in 2004 at only the age of 59. So he died young, but he's one of those just really terrific and prolific character actors. Other actors in the movie, the old guy at the beginning was Andre Toulon, the original puppet master. He was played by William Hickey. Did you recognize this actor at all?
I know he was. I've seen him in a lot of other like much more like artistic films for sure. And I think he was nominated for an Oscar or something.
He was an Oscar nominee for is it pronounced Prizzi's Honor? You know this movie? Prizzi's Honor, a movie by John Huston. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I know him from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. He played kind of the crusty uncle in that.
That's the one of his movies that I've seen probably the most.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Great film. It actually has a fairly acclaimed cast. Paul Le Mat, who was the very unconventional lead actor in this movie. He played Alex. He actually won a Golden Globe for New Star of the Year for American Graffiti. Was kind of his big break.
That's where he was from.
Yeah.
Okay.
He also did a made-for-television movie with Farrah Fawcett called The Burning Bed, where he won his second Golden Globe Award.
Nice.
So these are like real... actors that he's got.
Although,
they might not have been on the top of their career when they made Puppet Master.
Paul Le Mat, for him especially, Paul Le Mat, like, he was kind of like stiff in his performance in this movie.
He was, he was pretty reserved. Maybe he didn't really want to do Puppet Master. I would imagine that might have been the case. I don't know who wouldn't want to do Puppet Master, but maybe he was having a bad day.
Man. Have some fun, like
yeah, come on. Someone who did have fun, Irene Miracle played Dana, as you mentioned, so the woman with the creepy dog.
She was another one that got really into her role well.
And she was having a good time in this movie.
Yeah.
Also a Golden Globe winner, also for Best New Star of the Year for a movie called Midnight Express, and horror and genre fans may recognize her from Dario Argento's Inferno.
Inferno.
So she was in this movie. So she has some genre credits. Obviously, the cast was huge. We don't have time to mention everybody. I did want to make note of a cameo appearance by Barbara Crampton, though. I don't know if you recognized her as the blonde dumb woman at the carnival who got taken in by Dana's scheme. Okay. Barbara Crampton is a genuine scream queen. She starred in movies like Body Double, Reanimator, which I know you admire.
That's okay.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
This is
I thought because that was around not too long after that era. Like, she looked very familiar because she had a very similar hairstyle to what she had in that movie, too.
And, of course, Reanimator is an Empire film, which was Charles Band's thing before Full Moon.
Yeah, he did like Reanimator,
From Beyond, which also starred Barbara Crampton. She was in Castle Freak. These are all movies directed by Stuart Gordon. She's still in the horror game. She was in You're Next and a new film called We Are Still Here, which I haven't seen that one yet, but it's supposed to be pretty good. She also had a big career in soap operas. She was on Days of Our Lives, Young and the Restless, and Guiding Light. And she posed for Playboy magazine in 1986.
Very nice.
Back when Playboy had nudes. So there's a little fun factoid for you there, Kaz. Real briefly, some of the behind-the-scenes people. We should mention the name of the director is David Schmoller, who worked quite a bit with Charles Band. He did a pretty good creepy movie called Tourist Trap. He also did movies like Catacombs and Crawl Space. And
Crawl Space, I do remember enjoying a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good movie.
Yeah, I should... I should look into his catalog more because like he definitely has a good understanding of like these types of movies. It felt like from this film anyway.
He handled this movie very well, and in Crawl Space he worked with Klaus Kinski, was the heavy in that movie, who reportedly was kind of the inspiration for the look of Blade.
Huh.
And when you say that, you can kind of see it. So, well, I'm bringing the knowledge. I'm dropping the knowledge here with the fact.
Well, that's weird because I'm much more of an outlier when it comes to full moon. Yeah. I mean, I have a great appreciation for B movies and cult films, but I've never really delved into the full moon catalog much.
It's worth delving into for sure. If you dig around a little bit online in terms of David Schmoller and Puppet Master, it sounds like there is some friction, some bad blood between he and Charles Band over Charles Band not giving proper credit to David Schmoller's creative contributions to the Puppet Master franchise. There's some talk of residuals not being paid. I didn't really have time to look into it too deeply, so I don't want to kind of talk out of turn, but there's some potential controversy there. And indeed, David Schmoller was not involved with the Puppet Master series beyond this initial entry, but he definitely put his stamp on it, I think.
For sure.
Yeah, and got it off to a good start. Definitely want to mention David Allen, who was responsible. Yes. Well, his technical credit was puppet animator and visual effects supervisor for this film. David Allen is just a phenomenal stop motion animation guy.
Oh, yes.
The effects here were great.
They were very good, yes. And yes, with a lot of stop motion, it's going to be somewhat choppy when you compare it to like the hyperfluidity of modern day CGI. But in a sense, it still looks very like grounded in realism.
That's great.
And it's very fluid still.
Yes.
Like, I mean, even though it's not fluid, it's fluid enough where like the movements feel like an actual full motion.
Right.
And it's...
And one thing that impressed me here was not just the quality of the stop motion, which is always the case with David Allen's films, but the way that the stop motion was integrated with all of the other special effects techniques.
Right, where it didn't nearly leap out at you as fast.
Yeah, it kind of was all blended seamlessly together, probably because David Allen was supervising all of the special effects. Right. But it was very nicely done. We don't need to say too much more about David Allen now, just because he's involved in so many of other Charles Band films.
He'll come up again.
He will definitely come up again. He was a frequent collaborator with Charles Band, but sadly passed away very young in 1999, so he probably would have gone on to do a lot of other great things. The only other name I want to drop is Richard Band, who did the music for this movie, including the very iconic Puppet Master theme, which you hear over the opening several times throughout the movie. Really terrific. And Richard Band, of course, collaborates on many of Charles Band's films as well. So those were just some of the people kind of responsible for Puppet Master. Any kind of like final thoughts or final word on this movie? Is this something you would definitely recommend that people check out?
Oh, for sure. If anyone is a fan of like horror films in general, this is definitely a film to check out due to its history as like a horror film.
Yeah.
And just if you're an appreciation for stop motion, again, another good one to reference.
Yeah.
Because at the very least, even if you're not engaged in the story or any of that stuff, it has its effects work and just, cinematography is well executed enough that I think it's worth looking at, especially if you're thinking of like low budget execution. For a film and making it and pulling it off well. It's a good film.
No, absolutely. And I think it's a worthy entry in the killer toy, killer doll genre.
Right.
If
not, I would say it might be the peak as far as like a high quality film. As far as the ones I've seen, it takes itself seriously to a degree. Where it doesn't come across as like we know this is goofy as shit. We're gonna like
Yeah, some of the later ones might get like that a little bit.
Right, but this particular
one, they're trying to make a real movie. I mean, like, how would you compare it to something like the Child's Play movies, which I always think of as like the most obvious example of that genre?
Child's Play, like, again, that one kind of delved into more of comedy as it went on, or playfulness. The first film definitely first two, or at least, were a much more serious film. And yet I still feel like this one took itself more seriously because the character of Chucky and like his quips and one-liners and stuff with the like serial killer kind of still had that playfulness to it. If we're talking strictly, like a movie that's trying to be serious in many ways, I think it's a tightrope between the two. Both would be perfect examples.
I like the Child's Play movies as well, but I think one thing that this did was just create some really interesting looking, unique puppets.
Its aesthetic and setting, I think, just it wins you over in a sense.
So definitely check it out. I mean, and also, like, if you're sitting here watching the Full Moon Effect podcast and you're interested in Full Moon, you kind of have to watch Puppet Master. It's just kind of like the iconic Full Moon film. So everyone should definitely check it out. And probably most people watching this have already seen it, but you should go watch it again because it's really good. It ages well. So I think that kind of does it for our discussion of Puppet Master.
Yeah.
And more or less for the first episode of the Full Moon Effect. Thanks for everyone who stuck with us. So, as I said, film by film analysis of Charles Band's career, making our next film a movie called The Occultist. So this is what we'll be talking about on the next episode of The Full Moon Effect. I know nothing about the Occultist.
Neither do I.
No, I think this one is a little bit more obscure. This is going to be an amazing journey of discovery for us, I have a feeling, Kaz. So, yeah, that'll probably just about do it for this episode. We'll be back soon with our take on The Occultist. If you want more of me, you can check out the Patrick Markfort YouTube channel and the movie review show Brain Says Strange Things. We'll provide a link to that in the notes. That's a horror movie review show that I do with my brother. Just a general look at horror films. We have talked about Full Moon on there too, but we talk about all kinds of stuff. So check that out to tide you over until our next episode. And until then, I am Patrick.
I'm Kaz. Thanks for watching.
Yes, and this has been The Full Moon Effect. We'll see you again soon.